Hello. Welcome to Anxiety, Depression, and the Real Questions. I am Kimi.
And I'm Claire. Oh my gosh.
And there's a notification on Claire's end.
That was horrifyingly loud and scary.
Today we're going to talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender and like life lessons that you can get from Avatar, maybe a little bit about like what it can teach us about ourselves, when it comes to like the benders, like if you could figure out like what kind of bender you would be. I think so recently I've talked to people who were like, I've met two people recently, not met them, but like talked to two people recently who have said like they are wholeheartedly against watching Avatar because they think it's like really weird and like they just couldn't get into it. They tried to watch it and they just couldn't get into it.
What?
I know. And I think,
I'm sure.
for one, I think that is understandable for someone who actually does not like know, because it's a cartoon, right? Like people see it as a kid's cartoon. And while that's not like fully what it is, from the outside in, that's what it looks like.
Right.
Like, so it's understandable.
I guess.
I think I was 18 or 19 when I finally watched Avatar.
Yeah. I mean, me too. I was like, well, no, I was a little bit older. I was 20, 21 maybe.
Yeah. So it wasn't. The first season is a little bit hard to get through because it's kind of cringy.
Yeah.
Like it is cringy.
Agreed.
Like, little kids and doing little kid things, and they're young, and like that's when most people that I've talked to that couldn't get into it, they stopped mid-season 1.
Yeah, I guess like I did think about how it just gets better each season.
Mm-hmm. It's like season 2 and 3 like go hard, and they're really really good, right? But like. There's so much that we can learn. Like I just recently rewatched it because they added it to Netflix.
Woo.
I recommend like I legitimately very much recommend that adults watch.
Yes.
I know it's like hard to get through season 1, but once you do, it's so like it there's so much, and like I know people say this all the time, but like character development. I feel like Avatar is the epitome of good character development.
Yeah, there's also
in all ways.
Oh yes, one of the best examples of character development that I've seen, and like one of the best examples of a redemption arc written for a character, all this stuff. There's also a crap ton of symbolism in the show, and like different storytelling techniques that are like really well done and kept like my brain just stopped working. Hold on. They're kept like consistent through the show, because sometimes shows aren't written where like it's, well, one, that it's one complete story, but also that like everything matters, that it's like really well thought through. And this is like one of the more like well thought through things, like in the way that they do character parallels, color symbolism, etc., etc.
Now on top of that, like they built on the story even more with the comics that they released afterwards.
Mm-hmm. See, I've never read
out so much. I haven't like fully read them, but I know what happens in them. Right. Once I finished watching, I was like, I have to have more. Because I personally did not enjoy Legend of Korra.
Right. I wanted to watch it, and I started watching it with my friends, and we have watched season 1. But it was really hard for me. I think I'm going to keep watching. That was like a couple of years ago. Like now that I think it's coming to Netflix, I think I'm going to try and like watch all of it. But it was really hard because it's not as good. I mean, let's just be real with that. I can't think of anybody who would say that it's as good or better. Like, come on.
I heard it. I saw a comment not long ago that was like, it took away Legend of Korra modernized the world
Which is fair.
and it gave it all these machines. And it's like fair, but it took away that whimsical.
Yes, it's not as whimsical.
Not lighthearted, but like that whimsical fantasy world. It made it way too modern. It made it way too real.
Yeah,
and that's not why people wanted to watch Avatar.
Yeah,
they wanted to watch it because it was like there's these cool beasts and there's these like all this other stuff, and it's like it's all about. They made it too similar to real life,
right?
With the racial, like the undertones of racial discrimination and like the unevenness of the world. Like they took it, and it made it too real for people, for some people, especially me. And then I also, after I get really attached to characters, so it's very difficult for me to like figure out what to do. And so like the fact that you never really find out what happened to Sokka.
I hate that.
In the entire series, you never, like, you just know he's dead. That's all you
know.
And I hate that. You see Katara 4 or 5 times. You see Toph a couple of times. You don't really get a good explanation for what happened to Aang. Like, you do, but you don't. It never feels like enough.
It doesn't feel satisfying. And so
it's like you never get that closure that you need with all those characters.
Yeah, I think that's what it was for me, is less about like the way that the world is different, though I agree with you in the sense of like it's not the same vibe and I didn't like it as much. But also for me it was the characters. Like when I watched the show the first time, and well, okay, I love all the characters, so this is really hard for me to say, but like I think Aang's my favorite character.
That would make sense to me. That Aang is your favorite.
It's that's really difficult for me to say because like Sokka, oh my gosh, Zuko, oh my gosh, Toph, like of course. Okay, let me just start over. Appa's my favorite character.
The gang,
like Appa,
the gang is great.
Yes, exactly. Like Appa's my actual favorite character, but Aang. So anyway, I like. It's just something about the concept of Korra, that Aang has to die for Korra to exist, is like inherently tragic to me. And so that makes the foundation of Korra like not the happy show, the like healing show that it was for me when I watched Avatar. Like,
well, and on top of that, like,
so it was hard.
Korra was such a stark contrast to what Aang was as an Avatar.
I like Korra, but
Aang was
Aang's my favorite.
Like, and to me, whenever I watched, it always felt like Korra's personality fit a firebender more than it fit a waterbender. But that was just me.
Yeah, I mean,
and it was just the way she approached things, and the way, like, I couldn't get on. I could not get on board.
Yeah, I think I'm still gonna watch it, and maybe I'll have different feelings when I've seen the whole thing. But
I probably need to watch it all the way through just to get a little bit of closure. But like, I don't know if you know like all what happens in Korra, because like I know what happens in Korra.
Yeah, I know some things.
Because like, but it's like there's a lot of things where like, I don't know if this is a spoiler for you, but like she loses connection to the past avatars.
I don't remember.
She like so she,
I mean I think I remember, but I like don't remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But she like loses connection to the past avatars, and I'm like,
deep sigh.
I'm like, I get it, but I'm also like, that was the whole premise of Avatar.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that I like don't feel super like critical of like the writers of the show or like whatever of Korra. Like I don't feel like like you ruined it or something. I don't necessarily feel that way. I just didn't. So I don't like it.
I don't feel that way towards the writers. I feel that way towards Korra.
You feel that way towards Korra as a character. Oh, that's funny.
Because I get so angry. I'm like, what have you done? Because she like, and I think a lot of it is like, it's hard to explain, but that's not what we're supposed to do.
No. Oh, I know. But maybe
we'll talk about
comparison and contrast is like helpful in sort of even establishing our feelings, our very strong feelings about Avatar.
We can talk about Korra another time and how much
maybe we can do like a recap once I've like actually seen it.
Today's the 4th. Sorry, I'm making sure that I know
what we're doing.
Oh, hush. Anyway, not you.
I know.
So I was thinking earlier, like, I actually, because there's so many like things that Avatar can teach us as people, and I think it really touched on some really difficult issues. Like they touched on like oppression, they touched on genocide, they touched on like so much, and they
pacifism, war, propaganda,
and they showed character flaws in such a
sexism. Like, what else?
There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's so much. Child abuse.
Yeah.
If we're gonna talk about like, so I literally just looked up like a thing of like life lessons from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
And one of them that popped up that really got to me was like, even the worst people are still people.
Yes, they're so good at that. That show is so good at that.
And I think that a big example of that was Azula.
Mm-hmm.
And not even just that even the worst people are still people. They have, there's a reason they became what they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, like, Azula's so tragic.
It's so easy for us to forget, like, they're all just kids. Like, Aang is, I think, 13 by the time the series is over? Katara's 14. Zuko is, like, 17 by the time the series is over. Azula is 14.
Literal baby.
She's only 14 years old. She's literally been, like, mentally, psychologically abused by her father for her entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she
also has mommy issues.
She has serious mommy issues, which are understandable.
Yeah, I know.
From what she's been like struggling with. But on top of that, like, part of her knows her father does not want her.
You know.
That she is only a tool to him. And that's hard.
I know. She's so tragic.
And like on top of that, like, and I think someone was pointing out at one point, there's a part in season 3, I believe, where she goes to Zuko and she's like, I know you're visiting Uncle in prison. Like, you need to be careful. And he's like, why? So you could do this? And she's like, no, because I care about you.
Mm-hmm.
And people are always like, well, that's, whatever. And it's like, I think Azula was being genuine.
Yeah.
There. I think she was genuinely worried about what their dad would do if he found out Zuko was visiting their uncle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, like, deep down all of it, like, Azula cared. And Azula cared about, like, Ty Lee and May as well. And, like, because their betrayal is what, like, sent her over the edge. And there's a part someone pointed out, like, when they're on the beach. And that one episode.
Oh, yeah, I love the beach episode.
Where, like, Zuko, like, kind of makes fun of Ty Lee. And Azula laughs. But then, like, there's a cut where, like, when Ty Lee isn't looking at her, she looks worried about Ty Lee.
Yeah.
And it's like, no one was looking at her.
I know. Azula is genuinely such like, a complicated character, and it's beautiful because, like, what a well-written villain. To where it's like, is she a villain? I mean, yes, because she manipulates the people around her. She's da-da-da-da-da, but she's also a kid, and also all of those same things that you said are true. Where, like, and, like, I think mental illness plays, like, a big role. Like, I mean, you can kind of tell, like, well, she's not firing on all cylinders all the time.
Well, after the series, the comics touch on a little bit on, like, what, and so, like, after the series, she's, like, put into, like, a mental asylum type thing, like, where she's in a straitjacket.
Oh, dang.
But, like, the worst part is, like, she still has such, like, her, like, I think one of the favorite things that it's been pointed out to me about it is, like, the final battle between Zuko and Azula. You could have, like, someone was like, the creators could have had, like, intense, like, battle music.
But it was like,
but what did they have?
Tragic,
they had tragic music.
music.
Like they
playing.
had like orchestra, like very soft, like
this
strings.
battle right now is a tragedy.
Like this is not like exactly the fact that this battle is happening, that they are both willing to kill the other. They are brother and sister fighting to the death. Both are teenagers. Both of these
and
kids,
the colors
they're
in that
kids.
one. The colors.
Like the contrast of colors, but then like the part where at the final climax when Katara finally takes her down, and all that, there's not like this triumphant music.
Nope.
It's still sad because this is a tragedy. You have a 14-year-old girl who's sitting there and like
she's like sobbing.
All she really wants, like a hug from her mom.
I know.
And like to feel loved. Like
I love it.
And that is,
it's so complicated.
I think, one of the most tragic things in the entire series.
I know. And then the fact that like at the end of everything that Ozai is still alive, I think is also a testament to the idea that like bad guys are like people, because Aang is like, he's a human, and I know a lot of people don't like agree with the fact that Aang didn't kill Ozai. But I love it.
I have mixed feelings.
I love it.
I have mixed feelings.
And then what else? Oh, and then the way that it shows the Fire Nation, like it presents like the Fire Nation schools and just Fire Nation like citizens, is fascinating when you think about propaganda and like how these people that are living in this country that's like the evil country are not evil. Like,
yeah, not all of them are evil.
No, they're not evil. Like they're just people, and you're like,
and they're following orders, and they're doing what
part
they're
of their
supposed
country.
to do.
And then in the schools, when it's saying like they're teaching like inaccurate history, and you see that when Aang contradicts the teacher, when the teacher is like, when the great Fire Lord Ozai like defeated the air nomad Sozin, or whatever, I don't remember. Like
he like defeated the whatever airbenders
of the airbenders, and like the army of the airbenders, and you're like, and Aang is like, they didn't have armies, and they were like,
Sozin legit just committed genocide.
Yeah, but that's not what they're teaching in schools. So you're
but like if you think about it, that's the parallel between like World War II.
Exactly. So
and it's so crazy.
You're like, okay, so these, and like all the little kids that he shows them the dance party, and like there's still like showing how like kindness and like it's possible to like break free of like the wrong things that you see, like that the people that are there like aren't evil, but also they are like participants. And so it just creates this like really complex like view of like war and like responsibility of like countries and government and individuals. Ooh.
And it also shows like the difference between those who were like going along with it willingly and enjoy it,
exactly,
and those who were like, I'm just trying to survive.
I know, exactly.
Because you've got those you've got like the prison wardens who were like drunk on power, and you've got like the man who killed Katara's mom. Katara and Katara's mom, like he was like willing, and he was like, yeah, nah, I'm just gonna kill this chick.
Yeah.
But on top of that, it shows like, I think one of my favorite parts as well is like when like near that final battle, when Sokka is like everyone meet down in the bay, it's somebody's birthday, and like it shows like all these guys being like, I can't believe it, the captain remembered my birthday, and they're talking, they're like, hey, like I work in down here, that's why we never met, and then like he drops them down to the water. Which is like, I think another thing of like humanely, like they're not just gonna drop them out of this thing and kill them, they like dropped them into the water. But it was a kids show, so
yeah, I mean, yeah.
But on top of that, like there was also the like they were like dropped down and they're like, happy birthday.
Yeah, I know, like the way that they use humor to like basically like humanize the bad guys, like quote unquote, which I think is just genius. Also, I was thinking that the Fire Nation was not the only like bad guys that were presented. Like,
oh no, like the Dai Li and
oh,
stuff.
the Dai Li in the Earth
Kingdom.
Kingdom, which is showing like, ooh, all kinds of interesting like classism and all that sort of stuff, like Ba Sing Se. Also, the the crazy waterbending lady, the puppet master.
Oh,
I don't remember her name. No.
Hama.
Hama.
Like she was, like, to be fair,
she went through something so terrible. Like she was a victim, but I
think that's a really good example of how circumstances can turn a victim into an oppressor.
Yes, and like she was hurting people, and she was creepy, and like all this stuff. She was a bad guy.
And Jet wasn't necessarily like a horrible person, but again, he was a kid.
I can't take Jet seriously. But yes, he's an interesting character.
He's like the Avatar, The Last Airbender's like equivalent to a teenage like Clint Eastwood.
He has like frat boy energy to me, and so like I can't take him seriously.
I think what's great, but I think his character development, while short and while limited, was interesting.
Oh yeah. I mean, because he's a side character. That's another thing. They don't do side characters, you know, like
every character becomes a main character in some way.
And so yeah, he's not just a side character. He has really interesting motivation, really interesting flaws, and makes interesting decisions that make sense for like who he is. It's fascinating.
And it's like Hama, like the circumstances turned him into an oppressor.
And that's like totally possible. That's such a good lesson.
It's like a danger of war, right? Like it's tragic. And like by the end of it, his death is like huge. That's what it feels like. Because he dies for the cause, doing the right thing. And like I think the most heartbreaking part of that is, you know, like he's like, I'll be fine, like y'all go on. And Toph is just like, they're walking away, and Toph like whispers to Sokka like he's lying. And it's like
so sad. It's like
Toph. Also Toph. Okay. I with my whole heart love the entire gang. Like Momo and Appa especially.
You know how
she's definitely one.
Is Toph your favorite in the sense of like that Aang is my favorite? Because I can't. It was really difficult for me to say that, and it's like not true.
So
because like I stand like all of them, but like I know what you mean.
I think Toph, because I like Toph. Like
Toph's like your person.
Because there's not really a point when Toph, like, I know this sounds bad, but there's not really a point when Toph like full on annoys me. If that makes sense.
And all of the other people
like,
do.
Season 1, Aang and Katara annoy the living crap out of me. Like Aang is such a little like, and I know it's like to emphasize that he's like 12 and he wasn't ready for this responsibility. He doesn't want this responsibility and all of that. But I'm just sitting there going, Aang, there's a war. People are dying. Yeah. Aang.
See, it doesn't bother me at all.
And it like I'm like when I rewatched it, because I rewatched it recently because Tyler had never watched it all the way through until they put it on Netflix. And watching it, and I was like, okay, everything's fine. He's just a 12-year-old. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
See, I'm over here just like, he's adorable, a baby.
And I'm sitting there going, like, please, you idiot little child, stop it. But I think that emphasizes like the character development in the entire series for all of them is so good. Because Aang goes from this dopey little kid to a very mature, like spiritually connected avatar.
Yeah.
Who is like very wise for his age.
Oh, he's legit.
But I think what I love about Toph is like she's so no nonsense.
Oh, I know.
And she's so just like, you guys are dumb.
Oh, for sure.
And I saw something not long ago that was like, oh, Toph 100% killed people. When she was, because they were like, look at this, and they were like, and someone was like, well, Toph like is a really talented earthbender, so she would know how much pressure it could take. And it's like, yeah, but also Toph is 12 and doesn't care.
Yeah, she doesn't give a crap. Oh my gosh. Like, she's amazing.
But she's also like super powerful. And I also like, she's just strong. Yeah. She's so strong. So cool. And like, not even just strong-willed, but like an incredibly talented earthbender.
Mm-hmm. Like, she invented metal bending.
When she invented metal bending, on top of that, like someone pointed out, like when the library was sinking,
she was holding it up.
She held it above ground by like the smallest piece up at the very top, and she held it above ground long enough for them to get back.
On sand too.
On sand, which she was not, like, she couldn't see, like, she couldn't use her, like, because she's blind, but she like uses the earth to see, right? Like, she can sense it. She couldn't sense stuff. On top of that, she stopped for a couple of minutes to try to help save Appa.
Yep.
From being taken. And then she realized it's either Appa or them.
Mm-hmm.
And she made that like impossible choice, knowing that Aang would be furious.
Yep.
Like,
oh, I know.
Oh my gosh, they're all just so. And then if you think about this, like, Sokka is like the humor, right? But he's such
more
a strong
than that.
Character.
He's so much.
And he goes from like this sexist little teenager who's like, well, what can a girl do? To being like, my sister is like the strongest waterbender in the world, and if you go against her, like, I'll use my space sword on
and
you.
Him and Suki.
And he's like,
and
him and Suki are so
like,
cute.
Just
oh my gosh,
how of much of a genius that he is, and how he basically plans the whole like war, and he's like an excellent fighter, and he's really creative, and like all this stuff, and he's humorous. But I saw something that was like, woke is knowing that Sokka is the best character. And I was sitting there thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? I think they might be right. Like, I think Sokka is the best character, and I think I like stick by that. Like, they're all so great, right? Like, that's obvious, but like, he's fascinating.
But they needed Sokka.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like, if you'll notice, like, when any of the others like weren't with the group out of the main 4, and eventually the 5 when Zuko joins, if any of them aren't there, like, they're fine.
Yeah.
But as soon as they have the episode where Sokka is like off doing his own thing, they're just sitting there being like, what are we supposed to do?
They were just sitting there. They had no idea what to do. No idea how to function.
Yeah. And so there's that. But then, like, I also love representation of strong female characters without being over the top about it.
Yes, queen.
And in your face about it. Because one word, Suki. Suki is not a bender. She's not got any like special powers or anything, but she is a badass.
Yes, she is. She's so
and
cool.
Like, she helps Appa, and she's like, with Sokka, she like puts Sokka in his place to begin with, and it's like, excuse you.
And I think there's a line that I'm thinking of. I hope I get it right, where he's like, he said something about like being a good, like, a girl can be like a good fighter, or such a good fighter for a girl, like, or like something. And she goes, no, I am a fighter, but I'm also a girl. Like, I don't know. There was something where she was like,
she's like,
that's not, it's
a qualifier.
Yeah. It's like, I am a girl. Like,
he says something about like, I should have recognized you as a warrior instead of a girl, or something like that. And
that's
she's
what
like,
it is.
I am a warrior,
and
then she like kisses his cheek, but I'm also a girl, and it's like,
because they're not mutually exclusive. And she was like, that's the point that she was trying to make, which is just freaking complicated and awesome, and I love it, and it's beautiful, and she's amazing. Also, Katara is a fascinating character. Can we just bring that up?
She goes through so much.
She's fascinating,
and she's like,
she's not my favorite though, but like, she's fascinating, and I think that that's what makes her fascinating, is that she's not my favorite, but like, because she's angry, and
she like has this pain and anger that just fuels her forward. It pushes her,
and is sort of, but like motherly tendencies, and what's the word?
She's kind of
like,
an example.
What's a good word I'm looking for?
I think she's kind of an example of someone who had to grow up too fast.
Oh yeah,
which is all of them.
Yes,
but she lost her mother at a very, very young age, and she kind of became the prime, like the woman of the household who was in charge of a lot of stuff. She also became kind of a motherly figure to a lot of the kids in the village.
Oh, like, it's preachy. Preachy is the word I was looking for. But okay,
she's like the Hermione of Avatar: The
Yeah,
Last Airbender.
I know. Exactly. Oh my gosh, yes. And so, but what's cool about that is that, like, what a flawed, like, like character, like what an interesting, like, what interesting flaws they gave Katara. Like, she's so well written because and they make so many jokes about that, like, about her being, she's like, I'm not like that, and like all this stuff, like with the play, which is like one of my favorite episodes.
And they're like, and Toph sitting there going like,
she goes, she's like, I don't make teary-eyed speeches about like hope, and I'm not like preachy, and they're all like,
and they're like,
yes, you are,
kind of are,
but she's so cool, and she's powerful.
She's so strong. Like, she's like not even just like emotionally, but she is emotionally strong, but she is physically, like, her bending skills
insane
are like, she only had a couple of like maybe a couple of weeks with a proper teacher, and she surpassed, whatever.
I feel like she learned it all out of spite. I feel like honestly she just learned it out of spite. Like, she's so
literally, I think like that's what I said. She's like fueled by spite, like full on fueled by spite.
Killer.
But on top of that, like, she's also fueled by compassion.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So it's like spite and compassion, her anger combining, and then
is like this like justifiable righteous anger. So it's like, makes sense that she would be hyper compassionate and like hyper angry at the same time. Like, that those are not mutually exclusive traits, but rather what like makes her her. Like, they fuel each other. It's all from one place. And you're like, that's genius writing, man. Like, holy crap.
And literally let her, like, she learned blood bending so quickly.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And then like it didn't take her. And then the fact that she could use it, I want to say, I don't think they make it explicit, but in the episode where they're looking for her mom's killer, she uses bloodbending.
No,
and I don't think it's a full moon.
She might be right.
But I don't think it's a full moon.
It might not be a full moon.
Because it doesn't, I don't know if they ever show, like, they don't make it explicit, but like, I'm pretty sure it's not a full moon when she bloodbends that guy.
But she does bloodbend in that episode. And Zuko is and so quietly shook.
Zuko's like, he's like terrified.
Talked about Zuko yet,
and he's like, oh, what have I gotten myself into? But I love how you see her doing things, and it's like people acknowledge this 14-year-old girl is like insanely powerful, and I think it's also a good juxtaposition of her and Azula, who are both 14-year-old girls who've lost their mother in like different circumstances, but similar circumstances.
Parallels.
War took their, like, I think it's so interesting because, and it also has I think it also like has something to say about like father figures, because Katara and Sokka grew up with like a very strong, very loving father figure.
Also, Katara has innate empathy, which Azula doesn't. But they're both angry kids. Like, they both have issues, but like, and they're both really talented benders. But you just think about how, like, with brothers, older brothers, but you just think about how much, like, I do think father figures have to do with it. But yeah, the parallels between the two are like fascinating
in terms of like they're more similar than like we think they are, but it just turns out really like different ways. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Well, just like you said earlier, they're just the use of side characters with them as well, and showing character development through side characters, and like, oh my gosh, like Tylee and May,
Oh yeah,
Suki, like all the people they run into like in their little adventures.
mm-hmm.
The cabbage
Yes,
guy.
the cabbage guy. My cabbages.
Toph's parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of this that kind of ties back in, like it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, did you know that Mark Hamill voiced Ozai?
Yes, I did know that. That's so funny.
I think it's hilarious. But there's just so much.
Okay,
right? Like
Zuko and Iroh.
Oh, we could spend an entire hour talking about Iroh or Zuko.
I know. Let's give our quick thoughts. Okay. Zuko, best redemption arc ever written. Kylo Ren could never.
Facts.
And
facts.
And
okay, but facts don't at us.
I mean,
they're true. You can't.
And I'm not like hating. I'm not
them.
hating on Kylo Ren. I'm just saying. Anyway,
But Zuko had like.
It was slow, and like my dad was like, I wish, because I showed it to my whole family. My dad was like, I wish Zuko would have like, I wish it would have happened a little quicker. It was a little bit like too dragged out for my taste, like, and I was like, Dad, that is the freaking point.
I feel like that's what made it feel so like genuine, because he had that strong inner battle with himself of being like, I know deep down what's right, but also like.
You can't.
What if that's not what's right?
You can't.
And what if this is what's best for me?
Your whole personality in a day. And so when it was looking like he was gonna, so the end of season 2 is the main kicker. Like that's what's so crazy.
I think that was the perfect. Representation of him warring with himself.
Like my mom nearly lost it. Like when we were watching it, my mom was like, "I am so disappointed in Zuko. Like I really thought like he had it." Like he had it figured out and he like made the wrong choice. And I was like, I was in there thinking like, you have no idea, like season 3 Zuko is like coming for you. But also I was like, it's when it hit me, I was like he couldn't have made any other choice. Like it would not be the same if he would have like betrayed everything, like everything he ever wanted, like his because if you think about it, motivation, like, single focused from like years of abuse, but also just like everything.
It was his biggest desire was to be accepted by his father.
Yes, and he had that.
He believed, and what would get him that was literally sitting right in front of him.
And so he took it and
offered to him on a silver platter. It was only when
he got what he wanted that he realized it wasn't right, which is genius writing for them.
Which is how kids learn.
Yes, exactly. For him to then be able to betray his family, he needed to be able to like realize, like get what he wanted and realize that it wasn't right. Because him being
truly good people
banished didn't do it like that. He had to regain his honor, you know, like.
Well, and truly good people with truly good hearts typically cannot just turn their back on their family, even if they're a horrible family. And so that's the thing about Zuko. He has so much love in him.
Yes.
And he wants to love Azula, and he wants to believe that his father loves him. And only after like getting what he's always wanted is he realized his father does not love him. His father will never love him. His father will never understand love. I think deep within he still believes that Azula has like that potential.
Yeah.
Which is why he gives her so many chances. Yeah. Which is why he doesn't want, like, this is why he doesn't want to like do full on battles with her until the final, like until the very end. And like,
no. And Zuko's like such an angry kid that there's no way he can just be like, yeah, like I'm just gonna join the Avatar. Like, no, that's just wouldn't have like made sense. And so the idea of him getting what he wants and then feeling intensely guilty about Iroh. But in the end, that was not the main motivation. The main motivation was him figuring out like what honor really was. And you're like, holy crap. And he had to learn that for himself. And Iroh was just there to support the entire time. And then when Zuko is like learning everything and he tries to go and help Uncle Iroh, but then Uncle Iroh's gone, and then they finally end up meeting again. And he goes in.
Oh my gosh, heartbreaking.
And he's like, I don't know if you can forgive me. And then Uncle Iroh just...
And Iroh's like, there was never anything for me to forgive.
And you're like... He just said it, the music swells, and you're like, oh my gosh. And,
a good father.
And yes, like, because he was there, like... Oh my gosh, he was sad for Zuko when he made that choice, but he was not. Oh my gosh,
he was worried about him. He wasn't. He was like slightly disappointed, but he was worried.
not in a like.
Oh, I'm disappointed in you. It's like, oh no, like he was like disappointed that he was going to have to go through even more to like find his way.
Now it's gonna get bad, and I'm so sorry, and this isn't what I wanted for you. Like that was what he was feeling, and I have a lot of emotions about that. And then, right in all of that, or like before it or whatever, is when you get Tales of Ba Sing Se, which is when then Iroh is crying about his son when he's singing the song.
Which is what the major turnaround was. And which is like tragic that he had to lose his son to figure it out.
I literally was weeping the first time I saw that and teared up my second time watching. Like, I can't deal with it. The emotions that Iroh makes me feel, like everything he says,
like
he makes me feel everything. He's my dad's favorite.
I absolutely love Iroh, and I love how he's not just this transparent character.
Oh yeah.
He's multifaceted.
Oh yeah.
Because he was a Fire Nation general.
Yeah.
He was the heir to the Fire Nation throne. He was once 100% behind everything the Fire Nation was doing. He tried to conquer Ba Sing Se.
Mm-hmm.
But his son died, and that was kind of like a turning point. And he kind of realized, like, this is not worth all of this. Like, none of this is, like, what are we trying to do here? I know. And then he realized, then he sees how his younger brother treats his children and how, you know, cruel he is. And then he sees Zuko, this baby 13-year-old kid, get banished from,
and have his face burned off.
For speaking out of turn
and being right,
and literally being right.
It's crazy, and everything Iroh says is adorable and wise and like comforts me and calms me, and I love him. And he's the dragon of the West, like, and I just can't.
And how he like lied to protect the dragons, and how he like just everything king. Like
amazing.
They like just everything about Iroh's character and how he was never really like, if you like, look, he never fought for the Fire Nation throughout the entire series.
No, well, he was in
when you see him in current times. In current times, like, you don't see him.
White Lotus.
Like, he doesn't like he helps Zuko.
Because Zuko's who he
that's all
about.
He ever helps. Exactly. He cares about Zuko. He doesn't care about the Fire Nation. He does, but he doesn't, right? Like, he cares about people.
Like, him and Toph's friendship is hilarious to me. I love that. That is the funniest little thing that they did. It's so genius.
I love that when like Zuko finally joins Team Avatar and all this other stuff, and someone said, like, the first thing that Zuko does when he gets comfortable with them is he tries to make them tea and tells them stories about his uncle. The most important person in the world to him.
I love it. Oh, okay. We should talk about like our emotional experiences, like, okay, watching it for the first time, like what made you love it? Like what, like, did it, like, you personally, what did it do to you?
So if I'm being honest, I didn't understand the weight of
Mm.
it until probably a couple of years
Mhm.
ago. Maybe. I think I watched it for the first time when I was between 17 and 19.
Mhm.
I don't remember exactly how old I was. I can't remember if I was still living at home or if I was at college.
Mhm.
And I just remember really being like swept up in the story.
Yeah, it's just such a
figuring
good,
things
like,
out.
well-written show. So
It has very good pacing, which is very
agreed.
rare.
Agreed.
And I think that was something, that was another thing I didn't quite like about Korra,
Mhm.
was the pacing always
You're
felt
right.
off. But with Avatar, I always loved Iroh,
Mm.
and I always loved how he was portrayed and how like he was always, he always just wanted the best for Zuko
Mhm.
and to do what's right. Like, it was very clear.
Yeah.
And he was always just trying to keep Zuko safe. And then I also like, I really don't remember like all the feelings I had when I first watched it, if I'm being honest. But like, I've known, like, I loved Iroh.
Yeah.
I always loved
Yeah.
Iroh. And then just, I remember the first time I watched it through, I was really mad at Aang
Mhm.
for not being willing to kill the Fire
Mm.
Lord, because I was like, Ozai is literally like, he's y'all's version of Hitler.
Mhm.
What are you doing? Like, he literally does not have any concern for other human life.
Mhm.
Put him down.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I loved how Toph was like, let me do it, I'll do
Yeah,
it.
like, bring it. What is it?
I'll put that guy down.
Yeah.
And I love how, like, he's asking the past avatars for wisdom, and Kyoshi's just like, put that mofo down.
Like, it's funny.
But now, like, now looking at it, I just think that it is a great, I think it's a great way to teach people and kids, like adults and kids alike, about hard issues.
Yeah, like complexity.
It's,
yeah, I mean, and also I was thinking, like,
so much.
the idea that you sort of like grew with it, like you watched it several times and sort of like it grew in depth to you, like, over time, I think is really cool, and like a good compliment to the show, to say, like, you know, you watch it, you love it, like Iroh is like speaking truth, like, just, oh, sweet vibes. And then, but like it gets more and more like in depth, like every time you watch it, like, that's so cool.
And I think one thing that they did well about it too is you feel the emotional pain that the characters are going through. With Zuko, you feel that inner conflict, and you, even if you've never personally been through something like that, like, you can relate to it, and you can, like, feel his pain as he's going through all of that.
Yeah.
And if we want to talk about, like, that show making you feel pain, Appa.
The Appa episodes.
So Appa's Lost Days, when Tyler was watching through Avatar, the first, like, fully through, because he'd seen bits and pieces, and he kind of knew how it ended, because he'd seen kind of, but he didn't, like, know. And I told him, I was like, there's a part that you're going to get to that I'm not going to watch with you. I refuse.
It's too emotional.
And he was like, what do you mean? And, like, I was like, I'm not going to tell you until you get there. And he got there, and he was like, why won't you watch this with me? I was like, because I don't want to cry my eyes out.
Yeah.
And then I ended up, because I'm weak, I ended up watching it with him anyway.
And you cried your eyes
but
out.
not all of it. I really only watched the most heartbreaking episode, which
Oh
was
my
the
gosh.
one
The one that just follows him
where
around.
Yes.
I cannot deal with that. Like,
And
My whole family nearly lost their minds. They were like, please just
so
let him
that
be
episode
safe.
and then that episode and then the one right after it, which is where they find him.
Mm-hmm. I just can't. I can't deal with it.
I cried. The first time I watched it, I cried like a baby, like full on bawling,
Yeah.
like snot everywhere,
Yeah.
like everything. Same thing this time.
Mm.
And Tyler was like, "I'm going to." He was upset, like he felt it, but he's not like a crier.
Oh, yeah.
And so he would just look over and be like, "I need you to calm down
Yeah.
because this is a fictional animal
See, that's not helpful.
that you are just losing your mind over." Like I went through like an entire box of tissues, like
Oh my gosh.
losing my freaking
know.
mind. And I was like, Appa just loves him so much, and Aang loves him, and all Appa wanted was to get back. And then he went back to the air temple, and he tried to do all those things that he did as a kid, and now he's remembering all his Sky Bison. And Tyler was like, I need you to calm
Like,
down.
I'm gonna need you to
He
stop.
was like, this is very,
Oh, I know.
this is excessive. And I was like, no.
I know. My mom
And
was like,
it
I
was
just need him to be safe. And my brother Nathan, who never expresses emotion, said like he kind of was like teary-eyed during that episode and after, and he goes, I'm experiencing emotions. And I'm like, I've never heard him say anything like that. And he was like, especially about a show, he's like, Appa, like, and we're all like, I'm like, I know. And so we were just feeling the feels. But yeah, I know I was like absolutely, devastated the first time I watched it, and then like just had to keep watching until he was okay. Like we did not stop until he was okay. Like the episode where they find him. Like it's unacceptable any other way because it's too much.
And I love it. One of my favorite parts is like he comes back and he does something, and everyone, like, there's a meme that goes around. It's like Aang's like, it's against the monks' philosophy to kill another living being, and it's like Appa's like, I'll kill a bitch.
Yeah, just like, bye.
I will
Appa
do
is
it.
the
I
best.
will murder you.
So basically, my first experience with Avatar was when I was like older, and I watched it while I was coming out of like my really dark anxiety time. So it has a very special place in my heart because it was very healing to me to watch it. Like it's a happy show. Like I know it deals with hard things and complexity, but it's a happy show. Like
it's a very good balance between the tragedy and the good things in life.
I
And
could
it's not
trust
necessarily, and it's not even that good. Like it like focuses way more on the good. It's not even that. It's like it's kind of like with Iroh. It's like I think he's part of the like reason that it fits so well with like there are horrible things that happen in life. They're like life kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's kind of horrible.
Yeah.
But you can choose to look to the good things in life.
Yeah.
Like kind of what, like when he's talking to Aang and he's like, it's kind of like this
The
dark tunnel. But if you
Yeah.
keep walking, and it's like sounds so cheesy, but it's like it really is true.
Yes.
Like you can dwell on the horrible things that are happening in life, and it's not discounting that all these things are awful,
Mhm.
like horrible and tragic.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's just
But there
what
are also,
my
like-
little heart needed. Like I needed acknowledgement of like what I was going through, and I needed it to like be ultimately hopeful. And that's what it was of that show for me. And like the soundtrack and like the different things that it like talks about, the different advice that it gives, like there was just like different moments that like helped me think about my anxiety in a different way. It was like therapeutic in that sense, like all of this stuff. And I was also watching it like with my friend while we were painting her room one summer. So I was like staying with her. So we would like paint and then like go watch episodes because she had them on DVD. And then we would like sit and talk about it. And so it's like this whole like time of like, it represents like an era, and it's just like so good. And then being able to like show people and them love it like too is so fun. And then when I was in therapy, I was having like a really rough week. This is a really funny story with like a weird intro. And my my therapist was like, okay, I'm gonna have us do something, and it's pretty dumb, and I usually make children do it, because she's also,
Are you talking about the
like it's a she also like does therapy for kids, and she's like, but I'm gonna have you do it. And so she got out a sandbox and all these tiny little toys. Like, she had no idea what half of them were. She just had this box of like all kinds of things, like army men and stuff. And she was like, build your situation. Like, and so I was like, you can like basically do whatever you want. And so I like took a little girl, and that was me, and I like buried her in the sand, and like like she's buried, like just all that stuff. And then I had like all these like fences like blocking me from things, and all these like army men like attacking me. So that was my situation. And then she said fix it was like the next step after we like evaluated it. And so I like knocked down the fences, and I like knocked down the army men, and I like pulled the girl out of the dirt. And then I also brought in like these things that represented like music and family and like safety. And then there was a little Appa toy in all of the little toys, and I was like, it's perfect. And I brought him in, and he like represented like safety and love and friendship, because like, and also like the show and just like good vibes. And then I was able to like put the girl who was me like with Appa like next to a little house where we were safe. And I was like, because there are good things in this world. So it was a very emotional experience for me with this little Appa McDonald's toy being like, oh, he's safe. And so anyway, I feel like that really just represents how symbolically Appa and the entire show of Avatar: The Last Airbender is like extremely at a good place in my heart, very formative to how I view the world, and for the better.
And I think
that's great.
I referenced it in a conversation I had with someone. I don't even remember. It might have been you.
Might have been.
It was like it goes on. It has very big messages about forgiveness. And I think part of that is like when Aang's like, it takes like no effort to do nothing. Like doing nothing is easy.
Yeah.
But like forgiving is so hard. And like going forward and all these things about like forgiveness, and like they eventually forgive Zuko, and you know they go through all of that. But on top of that, like when Katara chooses not to kill the guy who killed her mom.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm glad you chose forgiveness. And she's like, I didn't.
Yeah.
I have not forgiven him, and I never will.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I will never forgive him. But like she couldn't bring herself to stoop to that level.
Right. But she did forgive Zuko. Like that was the turning point where she decided to, she's like, I'm not going to forgive that guy who killed my mom. Like that's not going to happen.
But she can forgive Zuko because like he, not only does he like deserve it, but he wants that forgiveness. And
she was like, and I'm ready, and I'm ready to do that. And like, what a complex view of that it wasn't like, so I learned to love. She was like, screw
it's
that
the two
guy.
Sides. It's the two sides of like the same coin, right? Because they're both Fire Nation. But Zuko was someone who was forced into it due to circumstances. He didn't really have a choice through a lot of it. And now that he does have a choice, and now that he knows he has a choice, he's making the right choice. But that Fire Nation guy, like that general or whatever he was, like, no, he was there. I mean, he was there due to circumstances, but he took it and he ran with it.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, heck yeah.
Yep.
You know, all this. And then he's like just this bitter, resentful, sad person.
I know. Yeah.
With like nothing inside of him.
Oh yeah, you go. Keep going. Okay. Okay. Last thing I was gonna say. Well, like last thing I think we should talk about is what I meant to say. God, that was a train wreck of a sentence. Is that we should talk about like what bender we identify as and what that means, like a personality test.
So apparently there's like tons of articles written about that.
I know. Can you guess what I am? I mean, I know you know what I am. What am I, Kimi?
So you're an airbender.
Yes.
Which is why I think you identify so closely with Aang.
Yes.
Because that's also the kind of person that you are.
Yeah.
Not just like who Aang is, but like you are very
annoying.
I wasn't gonna say it. I mean, I love you, and I love Aang.
That's what I said.
And I love you so much, but like yes,
exactly.
You are so annoying sometimes.
I know. Yeah, like can be too like almost like too positive, right? Like to the point where like we probably just need to come down to earth kind of thing, but also like yeah, like there's like some flaws with it and everything, but yes, I think that there's just like the sort of childlike personality that I think is because he was 12, but also like it's just him.
But I also think you're very similar to Gyatso.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really do. The reason I'm in Ravenclaw, if we're talking Harry Potter houses, is less. I know we're conflating all the streams at this point. Like, is not necessarily just because of like, oh, I like to read, which is true, or like, oh, I like knowledge, I like being smart. It's more about the wisdom side. I really, really like value that. And I really like thinking about like what is not necessarily like always the smart decision, but like what's the wise decision, like wisdom and like peace and fun and happiness and humor and like all of that stuff is like what I value like most. And I really like respect like his like intense like value of like life and stuff like that, like all of that. And also I just sort of feel airbending in the sense of like floaty and like yellow flowers floating in the wind kind of thing. So airbending is definitely what I am. And then you're fire, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely a firebender.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I think that's one reason I love if I had to pick like if I had to pick favorites for Team Avatar and like out of the benders, like I love Toph. I love her personality, but I feel like Zuko's struggle and like how he struggles with firebending and like how he finds his way, because like he loses his ability to firebend for a while and he realizes because he was using anger to fuel his firebending instead of what the core of firebending was supposed to be. And so like obviously I have a lot of anger. I have a lot of anger. I'm a very angry person. But in the past few years, I've been working on trying to find like motivations outside of that anger. And I like, because at first I was like, yeah, firebending, totally. I want to be a firebender. Like, yeah. But now I'm realizing like there's more to that, especially after rewatching. There's more to firebending than just the anger and the fierce, like, destructive aspects of it. Because, and that's what they learn about in the show as well, like, fire was not meant to be used as a destructive tool.
Yeah.
It's meant it's meant to be used for warmth and for
Life.
creation
Yeah.
and life. Like, that's literally the point of it. And I love it.
I know.
I also love dragons.
Yeah. I mean, the person that I watched with the show originally, Cheyenne, she was also fire, is like how that's identified. And I wouldn't necessarily say she's like an angry person. So, but if it's more of like, you don't have to be, and that's like not like what it is. It's more of a like, to me, it's like an energy. Like, there's just sort of a way that like y'all can get, like, when someone that you love is like in danger or something, like you'll like come at him kind of thing, like fight me kind of energy, that I feel like is Fire Nation. And also just sort of like can be like a bit all over the place, but
chaotic.
Yeah, there's like a chaos, but like
there's like a controlled
chaos
to
to
it. Because if
it.
you think about it, because
Mhm.
if you think about like Iroh,
Mhm.
like I feel like is a very good example
Yeah.
of a firebender who probably most likely never really used anger.
Yeah, anger was never really a thing.
Because he was never really motivated by
Mhm.
anger. He was motivated by, what he believed in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes it so interesting. I want to say, so my boy is definitely an earthbender because he's stubborn, strong-willed.
My sister's an earthbender.
And I don't really, do we know any waterbenders?
Water is like what I think of, like, basically, so air is a pretty interesting energy, like, that can be confused with water. And then if you're fire, you're pretty obvious. If you're earth, I feel like you're pretty obvious. And then I feel like water is like everyone else, if that makes sense.
And I think it's interesting because water, they have similar. I think all of them have similarities. They all have similar traits. It's what you do when you have any kind of like personality type thing. But I think water is almost a combination of all of them because they're very strong-willed. They're very
like, I'd say my parents were water, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think I don't know, it's just so interesting.
I know.
Because when you think about it, the main waterbenders that you meet in the series are Katara. Like, that's the primary waterbender you meet. You meet Paku, and Paku's interesting.
Yeah. I think the healing is cool. I mean, I'm thinking of several people that I know that are water, but like you don't know them, so it doesn't really serve as a good example. But yeah, just my friend Cheyenne said that I was like the first airbender that she had ever like met. So
you're the first person that I can think of. Like, you're really the only person in my life that I can think of
that
would be an airbender.
So I like pride myself in that rarity. But also I have like water vibes, so like, who knows? But I'm definitely air. So it's like, wait. Yeah, it's fun. It's a cool thing.
So we left a lot open here because like there's just so much. Like it's a 83 episode series, I think. And that's just the first. That's just Avatar: The Last Airbender. And there's so many complexities in it. Like there's so many different levels of things that you could analyze. I mean, we could probably spend an hour on each character.
Yes.
Because we didn't even talk about Momo.
He's cute. There you go. We talked about
Momo. But it's there's just so much. Like, I could literally spend years talking about Iroh.
I know.
And then, of course, we could also just talk about, I think later, we'll probably both end up watching Korra. And after that, we could probably talk about Korra at some point.
Which will then prompt us to talk more about Avatar, too.
Mm-hmm. And it's just, there's so much. But yeah, there's that chaotic aspect to this podcast.
Woo! That's how we do.
So yeah, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what kind of bender you are. Let us know what you think, like your thoughts on Avatar. If you watched it, if you haven't watched it, like what's your reasoning behind not watching it so far? Like, I'm very curious to know about that. And if you've listened to this, like if you enjoyed this podcast at all, I would definitely recommend going and watching Avatar. Because even if like there were a few spoilers in this, like, I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, like at the same time, like it's still a very valuable experience, I think, to watch it, because there's a lot to learn.
Do it. Agreed.
I don't like the way you were saying that. That was creepy.
Do it.
All right. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Yay.
We will see you or whatever next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Okay, bye.